let's dive in and talk some Kansas City Current, because it is a team that after this past weekend has separated themselves by 12 points at the top of the NWSL standings ahead of Orlando Pride because of the win, a shutout win that Kansas City Current earned at the weekend. And of course, the blockbuster move that started the weekend, their acquisition of 2024 U.S. Soccer Young Female Player of the Year forward Ali Sentnor. She is now added to an already stacked and attackingly potent team of Kansas City. It begs the question, are Kansas City Current officially a super team? It potentially. Now, I did do some definition searching of a super team. It means an elite team, exponentially strong due to acquisition of multiple star level players. So it's not just that the whole group is big, but it's the fact that there are stars on this team, meaning that a super team is likely to have success and win championships. They're almost dubbed as a favorite. So Jen, is Kansas City Current 2025 officially a super team?
Wait, first of all, I love that you Googled it to see. I was really glad you did that, because I was like, are they?
Shout out to Google AI, I guess.
For me, I need trophies in the cabinet. I need back-to-back wins. I think, and when I think of a super team, I think of the NC Courage of the NWSL or the women's national team that have gone out, lifted trophies back-to-back. Do they have the potential? Absolutely. Look, when you're talking about superstar players that are signing and performing, their stats this season are off the charts. The way that they're winning games is so amazing to watch. So 100%, do they have the potential to be a super team? Yes, for sure. They're going in the right direction. But for me, I need trophies. I need back-to-back wins. It's the hardest thing to win a league once, but to then do it back-to-back, that for me is what makes us super team.
What about a team like Orlando Pride, who won the Shield and the championship last year? They didn't go back-to-back years. I mean, this year is TBD on 2025 with Orlando, but does winning the Shield and the championship back in the same season qualify as a super team?
Like a great team, yeah. Incredible players, 100%. Super team for me is like teams that do it back-to-back, like a Chelsea in the WSL, 6 seasons back-to-back wins. That's a super team's best of the best, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not taking anything away from being a great team of the Pride and championship, Shield, everything. But if you get to super team status, for me, that's like top of the top. And for me, I've always said in football, the hardest thing is to lift a trophy, but to do it season after season is even harder. To have that development, to have the right recruitment every single year, to build and build and build, that's super team status for me. They're a great team.
You know what? I'm getting like, I'm getting like a different kind of energy. It's like, all right, are we talking like super team versus dynasty? Like, okay? If you looked up a definition for super team, Lisa, then what's the definition for a dynasty in sports? Right? Like, does the dynasty mean, to Jen's point, the trophies, the hardware? Like, what does the cabinet look like? How many medals are it? Like, versus just like really good players, who are competing to the furthest extent that they can compete.
I would say that the difference between a super team and then a dynasty is that a dynasty is almost like what Jen is saying, over a sustained period of time. Like Chelsea winning the Super League, 6 straight years? That's a dynasty, because it's dominant over an extended period, where a super team is maybe a little bit more contained to 1 or 2 seasons, but they've won everything in those 2 seasons.
So what are you saying then, Lise? Are you saying they are a super team?
I'm saying that they can be a super team.
Yeah, right. So you're agreeing with me.
I'm saying that they can be a super team. Whereas, I would say North Carolina had a bit of a dynasty in the NWSL for 3 seasons to win Shield and championship.
All right. I'm playing devil's advocate here. We can't have 3 of us kind of like agreeing, you got to see the trophy. But you know what? The truth is, I don't disagree with that. You got to have some hardware here. But I will say this, for maybe it's the writer in me or the analyst in my brain, that they're a super team in the sense that if they don't go out there and win, it's a failed experiment. I think there was some of this narrative around Gotham just, recently where they had a massive free agency swing and they got these 4 marquee players. They marketed them as the class of 26, for that free agent class because they all signed on contracts through 26, and it was Crystal Dunn and Rosa Bell and Emily Sonnet and Tierna Davidson. And now Dunn is gone overseas with Paris Saint-Germain, and they did not win a title, unfortunately, even though they had these super team caliber type of players. And despite whatever narrative they wanted to shake off or say that they weren't, I'm sorry, by casual sports fan definition, you can't have 4 national team players on your team and not be considered a super team in some capacity. And now the other part of that is that the experiment was a failure is a bummer to if you're the one making the moves or if you're the season ticket holder watching the games. But that's an example for me of a super team gone wrong, unfortunately. And I think if we're looking at Kansas City at this moment, adding an Ali Sentnor into the equation, it's presenting some super team energy. And if they don't get something this year, yes, it'll be a disappointment.
I could not agree more on that. I think if you're signing big players and playing like the way you are, and even mid-season signing a player like Ali Sentnor, you have to be lifting trophies at the end of the season or it's a failure. So I totally agree with that.
So I think there's just too many good players to, if you don't call them a super team right now at this point in the season, then what do you call them? Just a really good team? Come on.
So you're saying that they are a super team, Sandra?
Yes. They are right now, at this point in the season, they are the super team of the NWSL.
To me, a super team is like that Gotham team that signed already big superstars. I would say that Kansas City has developed the superstars that we know now on this team. Michelle Cooper, right? Like, or would you consider her a superstar across the league? What about Bia? What about, I think Shawinga, maybe you would say right now at this point, but otherwise it's a group of really talented players that are put in the best position to be super together. It's like a superhero group that comes together, but their powers only work when they're all on the pitch at the same time. Can they do it individually?
So they're like the X-Men. They didn't discover their powers till later and didn't know what to go with it or do with it. Like Vlatko Andonovski's now Professor X. Like what's going on now?
Exactly. How much does Vlatko Andonovski play into this super team?
I think he plays a huge role in it. I think that's part of the super team mentality. I think that's part of the super team highlights and characteristics. It's not, it always is going to be the NWSL with the players and who they are and what they do on that pitch. But if you also got someone on the sideline that is a bit of that X factor as well, that lends to the lore of a super team. Vlatko Andonovski's whole return to Kansas City was promoted as such. It was a welcome home. The Angie and Chris Long and the ownership groups were like, we're welcoming home Kansas City's son, and like he's returned and he's got so much history and he's gonna lead us back to the promised land. I mean, we have lore within the Kansas City lore, and Vlatko Andonovski is part of that. I think he's absolutely a part of this super team equation. You guys might not want to call him a super team, but I think right now in 2025, when we look at that table and we look at how teams are performing right now, Kansas City is the super team of this 2025 regular season.
I think behind any top team, top player, you still have to have a manager that knows tactically how to adapt, what recruitment, what players to bring in. You talked about development, Lisa, and what this team has done and got the best out of their players. Yes, credit goes to the players, but you have to have a manager behind the scenes that's managing players who aren't playing, having those different conversations. That is a player I used to value so much tactically, how you change going into each game. So to have someone that's had that level of experience for me is the best thing. Of course, young managers bring them through, but for me to have for him to have that international level, bring that back to club, I think he knows the team inside out. He's been there before for so many years and brought back in. He understands the culture of what the team's trying to do, the style of play it wants to go. He's huge. So I think, credit to him as well.
Lisa, I have another question because you brought him up. So I'm curious. Now. This is kind of the Kansas City show, so not to keep bringing Orlando back into the mix. But you made a really good point about Orlando in 1 year, essentially getting the double, getting the shield, getting the championship. Does that take them from super team to dynasty because it's just one season of titles? If they come into 2025 and they get that, let's just say they do get the Challenge Cup, does that maybe bring in some of that dynasty conversation for you? They get
for
that
Orlando?
Yeah.
No, they would have to win the Shield and the championship again in 2025.
Gotcha. All right.
And then it becomes a dynasty. But I would say that Orlando was a super team last year.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because they had superstars on their rosters as individuals.
Because at multiple points during the 2024 season, they were the best team in the league. They were the super team of 2024.
Because of superstar players. Because they had Marta. She is the GOAT of all GOATs. And I think you have to have multiple superstars in order to reach those levels.
Is it time to bring in like what legacy means and what you have to do to build a legacy? Or is that too much?
Just get the dictionary and find all the
Marta on the phone real quick.
Well, some of it does have to do with the history of the team, and we are going to talk about that in this show, but it also has to do with the future of the team. And I think that sometimes hindsight is 2020, and we could look back in 5 years and say, okay, that Kansas City of 2025 was a super team ultimately because of the players they had. But you also have to create a little bit of longevity in that. So if we look ahead to next year in 2026 and the roster that Vlatko and Andonovski has to sustain in order to maintain being a super team, who are those players that must still be on this roster that will make it be a super team that could potentially not be here anymore? Temwa Chawinga is signed through, I don't even know, the next several years. So she'll be with this group. But on some of these maybe free agents that are going to be untethered at the end of 2025, Sandra, who still has to be here in order to maintain the super team status for Kansas City in 26?
You know what? I need Kansas City Current to announce Lola Bonta already. I look at this list of free agents, and there's a number of veteran players on it, you know, from Kristen Hamilton, right? I would even include Rocky Rodriguez in the mix because she at this point has been a stalwart of NWSL and has been a key player in different midfields across the league. But when you look at some of these more experienced players on the list, the free agent list at the end of 2025, I see Lola Bonta on there, and I'm just like, how's that not the first player that we saw announced with a new contract or an extension for this squad? I don't know what else she has to do or what else she has to prove. I'm sure those things are maybe ongoing at this moment, at the time of this episode. And knowing us, we're talking about it, and there will be an announcement right after we wrap the show. So who knows? But I think for me, that is always how it works. But I think for me, when I look at that list of players, I want to see Lola Bonta back in the mix. And I think she is one of those definitive Kansas City players that you point at and say, that is the definition of our super team right there.
Yeah, I would say a phrase that when looking at this free agent list, there are some legacy players for Kansas City that need to be re-signed in order to maintain a super team status. Players that have been not only in the league, but in Kansas City that are really staples of the foundation of what women's soccer is in Kansas City. And Lola Bonta is at the top of that list. I also would put Haley Mace on this list, a player that has been with Kansas City and plays consistently. Like, there's something about Kristen Hamilton being a legacy Kansas City player, but she really hasn't seen the time on the pitch that makes her part of the future going forward. And I would not be surprised if we don't see her re-signed. But someone like LaBonta and Haley Mace, those are legacy players that if Kansas City wants to maintain the status that they are right now, they have to continue to bring those players back to bring the history of this team and this club into the future with players like Chawinga and Bia and Claire Hutton, right? Some of these younger players that maybe don't know as much about the history of the club.
Yeah.
Did you mention Bia there?
I think she's a newer player that doesn't know as much about the history.
Yeah, for me, she's a must though going forward.
I think so too.
Sure. She's like one of the top players. 5 goals, 1 assist already this season. Like, okay, injuries will always happen. That's football, is part of it. I don't think that can be a negative when you're looking at someone as a player. So for me, she's a must when you're thinking about, okay, next generation of what you want to achieve. And then for me, like, okay, Kayla Sharples, that's already been done, I think. But look, she came in mid-season. She gets goals as well. Such a threat at set piece. To come in halfway through a season and still impress, for me, that was huge. And she's doing it. She's at the core of the team. For me, in her prime, man, she's playing week in, week out and performing really, really well. So she's huge.
I'm gonna piggyback off of that and just say, make a bold statement maybe, and just say that I think that Kayla Sharples for Kansas City Current, I've heard whispers of like MVP caliber type of season.
Wow.
Kayla Sharples and who she is and what she's doing for that squad specifically this year.
Sandra, if a defender wins MVP, I will give you something great. I don't know.
I think there's a reason why I said whispers. I think it's an incredibly long shot. I think, every team does like end of year like awards, and I wouldn't be surprised if maybe she walks away with that one for club. But if we had to do like a power rankings of like MVP, runners right now, I think I'd have her in mind for sure.
Not that I wouldn't love to see a defender be named MVP. It's never going to happen.
That's part of the super team energy, though. The fact that we're even here toying or tinkering with that,
I really hope it happens now, just because big up the defenders, like for sure. And you know what? She's one of the best humans off the pitch as well. I will say, had pleasure to play with her for only 6 months, but even in a short space of time, in the locker room, on the pitch, she's like top human, such a team player. So I can see why she's making such a great impression over there.
Yeah, she has really stabilized so much of what Kansas City's done and made an immediate impact. But I would not say Kayla Sharples is a superstar. I think she is an incredible player, and she could be in MVP conversations, Defender of the Year conversations. But I think there's a difference between a superstar player that will make up a super team versus a group of really good players that are all bought in on the same page and are put in the right positions to succeed. Someone in our chat is talking about Hoosiers. Hoosiers is an amazing movie. What an incredible basketball story. That was not a super team. That was like a really good team that was brought together by circumstances. Guys, we got to get our definitions
bonkers. Bonkers to me that we got you, a former defender, saying that like Kayla Sharples isn't a superstar. To me, that just means that we're not doing enough talking about defenders. So me and Beattie got to make up the conversation here. We got to keep talking about more defense and more defenders on the show.
Yeah, man. I'll do that all day.
Right on.
I love it.
Center back. Let's go.
Yeah. All right. More love for the defenders. It's happening here on Attacking Third. You heard it today, August 5th. More love for the defenders.